Hi guys, welcome to Scratch Skill. Today we're going to be getting a full review of AP Computer Science A. We will be covering all these 4 units, and I have separate videos for each on my channel, and most of the content will be coming from those videos today. So starting with the types of programming errors. There are 3 types of errors. First one is syntax, and that is when you break a grammar rule of error. It's one of the most common ones. Happens because of missing semicolons, codes, spelling errors, wrong data type, wrong conditionings, and things like that. The next type is logic errors, and this happens when the code runs fine, but then the answer that you get is wrong. That means something was wrong in the logic that you used to do the answer, so you can just recheck your code. The third type is runtime errors, and they occur after the program starts running, so it runs and then it stops. This can happen with things like dividing it by 0, and another type of runtime error is an exception, and it's caused by something unexpected, like accessing a list that isn't there, accessing a file that isn't there, things like that. Interrupts the normal flow of a program. Here is a cheat sheet for just these. You can pause and go through it. Next thing I'll be covering is data types. Is one of the most simplest things. There are 3 primitive data types in Java that you need to know for CSA. They're int, double, boolean. Ints are whole numbers, doubles are decimals, and booleans are true or false. And there is one reference type, which is string, that contains alphabets or basically anything that's in quotes. And then you can do arithmetics with ints and doubles because they're numbers. The main ones are addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and modulo. Modulo gives a reminder, so if I divide 11 modulo 5, I should get 1 because 5 goes twice, and then the reminder is 1. Here is a small cheat sheet. Like when AP is gonna ask you questions, it's gonna ask what is stored in X after this code run. So they might give like a long list of operations, and then they ask what is X after that. And then another type of question is integer division. Remember, when you're dividing 5 by 2, your answer is going to be 2, not 2.5. If you're dividing 5 divided by a double, int divided by a double, you will get a double. And if when we're adding 2 strings together, so if I have system.out.println 5 in strings plus 2, it's going to give me 52, not 5 5 plus 2, 7. So rule anything plus string is equal to a string. And then variable overriding is really easy. That's when you change the value of your variable. Next is scanner. This is a new topic for 2025 year. 2026, 2025. Just a tool that lets you read what the user is typing. So how this works is from the keyboard to the scanner to the variable. So this is a setup. First of all, there is a very important line. You need to import this java.util.scanner. Otherwise, you can just do java.util. The star symbol, that is shift 8. And then this is used to bring the scanner program from the library into the program itself. The next line is the scanner input. So scanner, the class name, the name of the new input equals new scanner system.in. That is the line that you just have to memorize and just know. And then the next one is where it prints the message in the screen, simple. And then the next line is where it waits for the user to type a message from the IDE, and then it puts it into the variable, and then it gives an output later. So things to notice is over here when this was an int, so we had next int over here. If it's an int, we have next int. If it's a double, we have next double. And if it's a string, it's next line, not next string. Here are a few things to keep in mind. Oh, we actually already went through this. Next is casting. Casting is something that is heavily tested in MCQs because they're like easy to lose track of. That is, if I have a double that I want to turn into an int, then it just truncates the double part of that double. So if I have 3.99999 and I'm turning it into an int by using brackets int, it's gonna be 3 because there's no rounding while you're just converting doubles to int, casting. And when you're converting an int to a double, so whatever it is, like 500, it's just gonna be 500.0. Now if I want to round it, then rounding to a positive number would be change it to an int, and then the variable itself, like say x was equal to 5.6, so I put x plus 0.5 will give me, rounding up will give me 7. If I'm rounding it down or to a negative number, it will give me negative 6, 5 actually, sorry. Next is range and overflow in test and limit. So int limit is found by this function over here. You get all of this in the Java reference sheet that I'll be showing in a minute. The min and max, there is a limit to int, and that's just rounding we just talked about. Next is compound. There are shortcuts. So x plus itself equals 3 basically means, x plus equals 3 basically means x is equal to x plus 3. So itself plus 3, itself minus 2, itself times 4, itself divided by 5, itself modulo 2, like that. And this is increment and decrement. This is mostly used in loops like the for loops. I will come back to that. Next is the math class. Math class is also in the reference sheet, and that is where there is an you have math dot a value, and it gives you the absolute value. So if I have math dot -5, it's going to give me 5. Negative 20, it's going to give me 20. If it has a 20, it's just going to stay 20 because it's positive. Power works like a raised to the power b. So if I have 2 and then if I have 3, it's going to give me 8. And then the square root is going to be just the square root of something. So if I have 16, it's going to give me 4. Next we have random numbers, and this is kind of important because they can be tested, like generate a random value like that. So we use mat.random for this, and it returns, if I'm just doing mat.random, it just returns a decimal with from 0.0 to 1.0, but it does not include 1.0 because it just stops at 0.99. So the way to generate any number would be int, if you want it to be an integer with casting, mat.random times the max minus min plus 1, brackets plus min. So if I wanted to do 9 from 1 to 9, that would be 1 over here. 1 plus max minus min is going to be 8, because 9 minus 1 plus 1 is 9. So 9 plus 1 over there. Right over here, it's going to be 0 times 10. So from 0 to 1, and then from 1 to 10, this is going to be this min to max. Yes. Next is strings. Creating strings is really simple. It's just string A is equal to hello. But since string is like a wrapper class object, we can do string B is equal to new string hello. This is similar to the one we just saw in the scanner dot input equals new scanner system.in, like that. A string, an empty string, like when a string has nothing, no values at all, not even like empty, it's null. And string concatenation is when we're merging two strings together, we can just use a plus symbol. Make sure you know that strings are immutable. You cannot change the string. So once I make the string hello, I cannot edit it to be something else like I can with reference type variables. String methods include getting the length. So getting the length of hello would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5, this includes spaces. And then substring is going to be start to end, but it doesn't include the end. So if I start at 1, and when I'm doing substring, we're doing indexing. And indexing starts from 0. So I would do 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. But 4 isn't included, so I would just print ELL. Single character would just be I plus F1. A few other ones are index of. So when I'm searching for the index of n over here, it's going to give me 2 because 0, 1, 2. 2 is the n, is going to give me the first index. And say it was q over here, and there is no q in the word banana, so it's just going to give me -1. Now equals to checks if two strings are exactly the same. Doesn't matter. The case, it is case sensitive, so since high is not equal to smaller high, then it's going to give me false. It returns a boolean. Some other string materials are the compare to. Compare to compares using the alphabet. So this can be a bit tricky, but just try to look it over here. So it compares apples to banana, and it's gonna give me negative because apple comes before banana, because A comes before B. And since banana to apple is positive because B comes after A, C is going to be 0, DOG, but then since this is bigger, it's going to give me negative. So if the bigger one is to the compare to in the brackets, if the bigger one is the argument, then it would be negative, and if it's not, it would be positive. Since over here zebra is the greater one, since it's farther away in the alphabetic order, is going to give me positive. So this is what I was talking about. You're going to get a quick reference sheet. There's more to it down. So it's just going to have all these string things we were just talking about, equal to, compares to, and an explanation, the max values, and things like that. Next is equality. In Java, when you're setting something equal to something, we're just essentially assigning a value. Same thing, not the same thing. Two equal to signs means we're comparing. It's always going to be true or false. We're comparing two values. Here are some operator and its meanings. Next is if statements. This is a conditioning statement. So a one-way selection has if a condition, a score is greater than 90 in brackets, and it returns whatever is there. The second one is it has if and else. So it's gonna have else a return not perfect. So else never gets brackets. So if a code comes out and says what's the error over here, and you see brackets for else, that was probably gonna be the error. Next we have a three-way selection. That is, it has if, else if, and else. So first it checks if, and then if is true, it's gonna print out if, done. And then next it goes to else if the first if is not true, and then it prints that, and then the else. So you can't have if else. You need to have if else. Oh, okay. Next we have nested ifs. Now this is when there is an outer condition and inside. So if her score is above 90, then it goes to the inner one. If her t-shirt's blue, then it's gonna give both as true. So it's checking two conditions. Next are compound operators, and this is tested a lot on MCQs. Like, these are easy points if you really know them. First of all, make sure you know that this exclamation marks means not in Java. So over here we have and or function. So if I have a and b as two variables, and I have true assigned for a over here and true assigned for b, then a and b are true. True assigned for a, false, that'd be false, false, and false. So basically, if we have an and unless everything is true, nothing's gonna be true. Everything else is false. And over here for the or, if we have a single true, so true, it's gonna be true. Just one true is enough. De Morgan's law is the exclamation mark we were just talking about. So if it's, say, true and true is true, but then true's opposite is false. So that basically means not this or that. So not either, not this, and not that. So remember this. You should be able to break them down. Next, we're going to learn about string equality. So when we're doing is this string equal to that string, then it's false because we have two different objects over here. There are two different ones. But then dot equals compares the contents or whatever is inside the code. It's not necessarily letters, scratch that. Anything that's inside, and if it's the same letters in same order or same anything, it's going to be true. Next we have a loop called while loop, and this repeats when the code is true. So while condition, it just keeps repeating. It's mostly used for unknown iterations, like how many times it's going to loop, and for no iterations, and for infinite loops. So here's an example of a while loop. So I have a condition. If it's lesser than or equal to 5, it's going to keep printing. So if it's lesser, yes, and then when it reaches 6, when count is greater than 6, so we're incrementing count, it's going to stop. Next is a for loop, and the for loop represents a loop is a loop that keeps repeating for a specific number of times. So we have our initialization, test, and update over there. So initialization, I int I is equal to 0, the update, the condition, initialization, test, and update, and over here. Make sure you practice a lot of for loops tracing, because you will get questions with loops and say, what is x equal to after this? So over here in my case, what is going to be printed? It prints 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in separate lines. So do that on paper. Here is a small graph of the 3 types of loops that's going to be tested on the CSA. Make sure for any question type you need to understand, does this infinite loop? That means there is no change in a certain variable. Is it updating? Make a trace table and things like that. Next is nested for loops. For loops, when they're nested, is mostly used in 2D arrays, but in general, they can be used for like if for checking a array where you're going to compare one value to all the other values, like that. Here's an example of a for loop. Let me help you solve this one. I'm gonna put a nice color. Okay, so first it's gonna print at 0. Okay, it's lesser, so 0 is gonna run 5 times. So it's gonna print 1 star, 2 star, 3 star, 4 star, 5 star. And since it ran 5 times, so it runs actually 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and since it's lesser, it goes to the next one, next line, and then it goes to the next one, then it comes back as 1. So this is essentially going to run 3 times, print 1 more, and 1 more. So this is how the stars are going to be. So if you get this like a multiple choice question, you can just choose the one that looks something like that. Next is indexing. So over here we have, like I was talking, the first index is 0 to 4, but then the length is 5 over here because the length starts from 1, and the last character is length minus 1, index of, substring. Yes. One thing we didn't talk about was substring 8. It just goes from 8 to the end. Now let's move on to a class. A class is like a blueprint. To declare a class, we need to have written class with a capital letter over here. This is actually useful. I'm gonna use it over here. So make sure you have a capital letter. From a class, you make an object. Sorry. So from a class, you make an object. So you have student class over here that we made. So now we write the name of the class, and then the name, new student, and any parameters that come in there. So now instant variables are the things that a student can have, like the object can have, like a string name or string grade. And a constructor is what actually like makes the object, because an object is made through a constructor. So if I have public class person over here and I have private string name, then I will have public person string n, taking the instant variable and assigning it to the argument that the user gave. So that's the constructor, and this is the format of object of declaring an object. So if you didn't write one, you're gonna get a default constructor hidden with no parameters. So every class has a constructor. Methods are actions that an object does. So the student, so S1 can study, S1 can do homework, S1 can take a test, and things like that. There are 2 types of methods. First one is void methods, where they can perform an action and it's mostly printing, but they don't really change anything or they don't give back anything. I mean, they can change, but they don't have a return value essentially. So a non-void method will return something, so there is going to be the line return. So if you have a reference type or primitive type over there and there is no return value, notice that is going to be an error. That is going to be a syntax error because there is a grammar root. Next is, this is just a small summary of what we just finished. Feel free to look at it. Next, there is access control. So notice over here we have privates and then we have publics. publics, and things like that. Privates can only be used inside the class. So everything inside these two brackets are inside the class. Everything in this box is inside the class, right? So you can only use these variables inside over here. So name, age over here. Okay, public can be used outside the class. Public is used while we're using a static method or like making an object using the constructor and things like that. Encapsulation means keeping the instant variables private, so no outside class can mess with them directly. That's basically what we said right now. So if I wanted to change the person's name, then I can't just do person.name Bob. That does not work. You need to hide it and keep it private. So if I wanted to change it, then I should make a public method that actually changes it. So that would be called a setter method that changes data, and things that get data would be called a getter method. This is just parameters and arguments. Parameters are what's like in the method function over here, and then an argument is what the user actually puts in. Now here's static methods. Static methods are always belonging to a class, and you call them with class method name, while instant variables belong to an object and need an object. An object is a necessity to be calling an instance method. So I created a person P, and then I do the method with them. Next is toString. toString is a default function that comes up when you're printing something. So anytime you print an object, you're essentially calling toString. That gives it in a neat format. Not too confusing, but it just prints out. So if I have new dog over here and cookie, and it'll print out cookie. That's all that happens. Next is this. This basically reference to this current object. So if I'm working with P1 Bob now, then if in the constructor I have this name, then I'm connecting to this name, and then this string is this one. So this name is the object's name, name is the input parameter. Here are some notes, some more. And next we're going to start with arrays. Now an array is a collection of elements of the same type, and it helps us store many values together. Initially we weren't able to store many. We could only do int score 90 and that's it, but now we can do int square brackets and we can add how many ever we want. Notice indexing goes from 4. I cannot stress enough on indexing, do not forget that. Next, we can actually make an empty array by just saying the new int and how many places you want. There should always be a defined number of places, slots for arrays, because you cannot change them. Default values are these. And next is accessing and modifying one. So to access an array, say this is my array for now. To access a value, I would just write the index value, so 0, 1, 2. 1 is over here, and if I wanted to change 2, that would be 100 to a 95. Array length would be 3 because 1, 2, 3. Length starts from 1 and indexing starts from 0. Here are the two ways you can declare arrays if that wasn't clear. So that's going to be a data type, square brackets, array name, data type, and then you could have pre-done values too. Next is a standard loop traversal where you go through the array. So to go through the array, you start from 0 and you go to 1 because we're incrementing, 2, 3, 4. Remember that the array length is 5, but since it's just lesser than and not equal to, it's gonna stop at 4, which is the perfect amount. So it goes from 0 to 4, printing everything. We can also use a for loop over here, int I, so basically int value of r, so each index of r is gonna get printed. It just keeps going from here to here to here to here. Next is a while loop, and that's basically you're incrementing over here. It's uncommon, but it's really easy once you know how the loops work. Next is input files. So we have learned that we have a scanner input and we get input from the user. But then what if we already have pre-saved input in a file? So that basically to access that file, we use the new file and the data. So here's another way to write it. So file, my file, data, text. This is important for getting the file. And if there is no file, then that's an IO exception and it handles the errors neatly. Here's an example. So make sure you import these. These are so important. Make sure you import them. And then if there's the exception, then it just stops safely instead of crashing randomly. Then we're like going and getting the file. We are reading through the file using the scanner while there's still things in the file. We're gonna learn this, then it's just gonna keep printing. Over here, so in the while loop, just like I said, if we have a next string, that's gonna be next line. If there's any word or any token, it's just gonna be next. And then if it's an integer, it's gonna be next int. And if it's double, has next double. Make sure you understand this graph over here. This table over here. So take your time, pause the video, actually soak in the information. And next is reading data. So one over here, there was system.out.print next line, like when we were actually reading the data off. That happens for strings. It's going to be next line, next word, int, integer, and double. It's going to be a decimal. Now, splitting the data. Once you say this is the file, in the file is going to be separated with commas, maybe spaces, or anything like that. So to split it like that, you will have to make a string line at the next line, and then string parts, and you're going to split. This is the function split at whatever there is. So if I wanted, say it wasn't that and it was slashes over here, so I would just add a slash over there. That's all. And it's gonna give me part 1 Alex, 90, 85, Mia, 192. Now a wrapper class is just sometimes x is just a raw value, so this is just an primitive type. You cannot do much with it, but sometimes Java just needs an object. Oh, it's not the highlighter. It just needs an object, so you would write integer x Java equals 5, not int. It always starts with a capital letter. And wrapper classes have some useful methods that you can actually use, so that might be some of the reasons CSA cares for a wrapper class instead of a primitive. Next is parsing merge, and this is about the file input. So they are usually read as strings. So once I'm done reading a big file, and I will have the things as in quotations. There's always going to be quotations once you're done reading a file. So if I'm trying to add 16, if I'm trying to add a decade to the age, I don't want it to be 1610. I want it to be 26. So what I would do is use parse int. That would take off the quotations. So from text to a number, that would be simply done by num integer. Let me just remove that and take the highlighter back. So that would just be int num integer pos int. Just understand how that works, and it's just gonna add the num as an integer and give us 26. Same for decimals, just add a double. Here's a full file example. Let me explain code line by line. So it checks if it has a next line, then it goes through and it reads the next line, and then it splits any information into parts and adds it onto the array, and it adds the grade. It has the grade, and then it just prints out the grade as an integer. Overflow. Now, like I mentioned, there is a max value and a min value, but if you choose to add a number to the max value, it's not gonna go beyond max or give an error. It's actually gonna go down. It's like an odometer rolling around. So this could be a trick question. It could like, what error occurred? But there are no errors. It just keeps rotating. Next are ArrayLists, and ArrayLists actually change. They consider them like a stretchy version of an array. So you can add items, remove items, grow and shrink, and things like that. An array list is declared using this, so make sure you know that. Array list string or whatever type it is, integer, double, any object type, so no primitive data types. And before you do that, make sure you have the sign of java.import util array list. And now once you're done with that, things you can do, like adding on things, is add object, add index object, remove the index, so you can read these to understand how they actually work. You can get the index of an item by just writing the name. You can set another item, and then you can find the size of an item. So to find the length, it's the size. Remember, difference from the array and get index is an array just has square brackets. A list index uses get. Transversing through an array list would be like adding, I have pizza, burger, and fries in there right now. So the most simple is just going through with an enhanced loop, but this doesn't remove items. A regular loop would look something like this. Loop backwards would look like this, where we start with the last one and then we keep moving to the first one. Finding the maximum. Please feel free to pause the video and break down the code, trace the code, and do things like that. That will better prepare you. Finding the sum is really simple. Counting, this is very common, so for this condition, if this condition exists, then count plus. Next, we have 2D arrays. 2D arrays and arrays are similar. Array lists are a bit different to both of them. A 2D array is basically an array with rows and columns. Something I get wrong all the time is rows and columns. So rows go sideways and columns go down. So think of like a spreadsheet or something like that. So an important rule is row, column. First row and the second number is the column. So 1 row and 2 columns, like I was talking. Indexes start at 0, and to actually create a 2D array, we would do, to create an empty one, we would, and this is fixed, okay, you cannot change the number of rows or columns in it, so you would do a fixed value of 2 and 3, so that is 2 rows, so there's 1 row, 2 row, and then 3 columns, so 1, 2, and 3. If we already know our values, we can just use curly brackets inside curly brackets and a comma and another curly brackets. Default values are the same. Setting methods, for setting values, you would do set the 0, 1, so that would be 0th row and first column. Getting values, and the length is num.length without parentheses. So to go through a 2D array, you would use a nested for loop to go once through the rows and then once through the columns and just keep printing out. An enhanced for loop is another way you can go through. Remember, to find the number of rows in a 2D list, it is a.length. To find the number of columns, it's 2 for the array, the 0th array of the length. So that would basically be something like number of rows is over here. If I take an example, it would be length, so the row is 2, right? So 1, 2. The number of columns will be this row's length, 1, 2, 3. Next, we will use this array over here that I've done with 2 rows and 3 columns to do the following problems. So for the row major, we're going through each row. Here is a guide on how to do it. So if anything's confusing, just go through it. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A column major will go 1, 4, 2, 5, 3, 6. Look over here if you guys missed what I was doing, or that's a small sample. A row sum would, for row 1, since we're doing row 1, we go to row 1. Then we add all of these, which would give us 15. Please check the code. A column sum of 2. So the second column would be this one. That would be 9. And then subsection from row is 1 to 2. That would be over here. Go through the code. And then the next topic is sorting. there are from this messy one to going to the neat from biggest to smallest one. There are 3 types of sorts that we would need to know for CSA. First one is selection sort. Now this is where we find the smallest thing and put it where it belongs. It's like swapping things, right? So if the code asks us to use selection sort, it's like swapping things. So I would first check the first value. No, I would first check the whole string. Then I'd be like, where is the smallest number? So if negative 20 is the smallest number, I'm going to switch with negative 20. Now I ignore the first element because that's already sorted and find the rest over here, which is the sorted number. So it's 3, so I put that in the front. Next, the third pass would have 14, and it would just keep going like that until it's done. Now remember, questions from selection sort can come like, what happens after the third pass? So you would essentially find and pick the answer that would look something like this, because that's what happened after the third pass. So know how to go through the selection sort. Insertion sort works differently because we're comparing the value to the left. So the current value is 1, so it would start at 1, compares to the 0, and if it's already done, it's no movement, compares next number to, compares to the left. Since it is younger, it shifts, and then it checks again. And then since it's not, it's just no movement, and it stops over here, keeps going like that until it's sorted. Same type of questions. And then there are searching algorithms that find a target. Linear search is where it goes one by one. So first it checks 9, 3, negative 2, and 9. And since it found 9, it's going to give the index of 9, which is 2. Binary search is where you go through the list and cut half of it and then search for the rest half. I'm going to explain it a bit more to the end of this. So it's basically, say I have 81. So I would check the first index, and the right index. Middle index would be 2. And since the value is greater than 15, make sure you know that it only works to sorted data, by the way. You would just cut everything out. So nothing over here would be useful anymore. So you just cut it all out, and these two are the only useful things, and you check between them. Middle index is always to the left if you have an even number. So that would be 81, and done. Next, we have recursive methods that is mostly shown by using a return mystery. I think I still have the red color. Let's see, I feel like yellow would be pretty. Yeah, so return mystery is the most common type of recursion method. So recursion is basically where you have a base case and a recursive call that just keeps calling the method again and again. So an example for that is this factorial. So for factorial, if you guys don't know factorials, let me just explain that one. So if I have, not able to select it. So if I have 4, oh, that's a 4 factorial, I think it comes over here. That would just mean 4 times 3 times 2 times 1 goes up to 1. So over here we have 4 factorial, that's 4 factorial times 3, that's 4 times 3 factorial, same, it keeps going until you reach 24, which is the answer. So the step that it goes is first it goes down, and then it comes back up. We understand that more over here. So what is the mystery value of 3? This is very likely one of the MCQ questions. You're going to see something similar to this. So first we go through the loop, we put in 3. So okay, it's not equal to 0, so I would do 2 times 3 minus 2 minus 1, which is going to give me 2, and then since 2 is not equal to 0, it's just going to keep going until it gives me 0, and I return 1. So then since it went all the way down, which is the first step, now it's going to go all the way up, and it's just going to keep solving. So 2 times 2, 8, and that's going to give me the answer of 8. Next is merge sort. Merge sort is a type of sorting that we were the other one. So that's basically when you have a big string and you just keep splitting it until it's one element. Then you start sorting each element. So 5, 2 would be 2, 5, 20, correct. Swap, correct. And then you merge sort between over here. So 25, 20, okay, correct. 18, 18, okay, done. So from 8 goes over here, 15 goes over here, 17 goes there, and 10 goes here. And then at the end, we just add them both together. So it merges piece by piece. It's called divide and conquer. This is the binary, so it checks the middle. Middle is always to the left. Remember that. Left, that L is not readable. Neither is that. Okay, let's scratch it. So left, and then this is how it works. Feel free to read that. You don't need to know the code. I don't think they're gonna ask you to write the binary search code in the FRQs because there are like other prompts. Just in MCQs, know that how it works. And here we have completed our Cram session. Hope this helped you. Please feel free to ask any questions in the comments. Thank you and good luck for your exams. Bye.